Welcome to the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. I'm Kim McLaughlin, your host. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, coach, speaker, and best-selling author. I help people when they feel frustrated and overwhelmed, and it shows up in overeating. Today is a special episode because we have Permelia Parham, who is a certified body code and emotional code practitioner. We're going to talk about the energy of food. It's really exciting, and we're talking about the energy source that is connected to food. You're going to love this episode. We're going to talk about the ABCs of food, how we can have a gut check when we're eating, and many, many doables around mindset, food, and emotions. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. I am so excited. We are here with Permelia Parham. She is a certified body code and emotional code practitioner. She is a teacher and practitioner of energy healing and has studied and used this modality for over 20 years. Through her company, Vibrational Healing, she provides emotional healing sessions, individual consultations, and realigns limiting beliefs and heals past lifetime energy. She teaches strategies on how to increase energy, expand life, expand self-awareness, and be empowered to make positive changes. Permelia, I am so glad you're here. Welcome to the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. We haven't talked about any of these kind of topics, so I am all in to get going. Do you want to give us a little bit, anything else you want to give us about who you are and what you do?
Well, thank you, Kim. I'm very excited to be here on your podcast today. So yes, I live on the west coast of Vancouver, on the west coast of Canada, on an island called Vancouver Island. And I live in a small city called Parksville. And I have been incorporating energy healing for myself only. That's how I got started. I was just not in a happy place 20 years ago. And I knew the only way for me to find joy I had to go inside. I wasn't going to be able to find it anywhere else. So I have been studying this and incorporating it into my lifestyle. And now it turned into a business. So I now get to teach others.
That's so cool. Could you describe what energy healing is? Your type of energy healing? Because I know there are lots of people with lots of definitions. I just want to be clear for us all. What do you mean by energy healing?
So we all are made up of vibration. We think this is the body and this is all there is, but we're so more than that. We have vibration, the vibration that we have that's in and around our body is made up of energy. So everything is energy. If you do some scientific studies, we have atoms and molecules and all of that stuff. And it's all energy. It's not all energy. We don't think about it in that realm, and we haven't really been educated about that. But that is, in fact, what it is all about. So when we're looking at energy, we're just looking at everything that could be going on in the body. And we want to have as much good vibration because it's the law of attraction. So the vibration that you have around you, if it's a good vibration, that's what you're going to attract. If you have bad vibration, well, guess what? That's what you're going to attract.
I think this is such an interesting topic to talk about. We talk about on the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast, we talk a lot about overeating, feeling frustrated with overeating, working out of dieting, and really having a different relationship with food. But also there's this different relationship with our body that has to happen. And I think of energy, there are two things I think of as energy around food, like what energy the food brings to you, but also the energy around our body. Do you have any ideas about any of that, or kind of what do you think about all of that?
Well, I just think it all works together so well. And what's amazing about the body code is that we can actually work on a specific food to release that energy or emotions, the emotions that might be going with that food. So for example, if you're really always attracted to ice cream, for example, well, what happened when you were a child? Did you get rewarded and did you get an ice cream cone or whatever because you did good, or you got an A, or something, your behavior improved, whatever that was. So we have those emotions around eating, and so we can release them. We can release those emotions. A number of my clients, we have worked on a food, and also I have a couple of clients, we've worked on alcohol. And I said to them, be very careful what you want, what you're wishing for, because the emotions and the energy that is around that food are going to go away, and you're not going to want it. You're not going to be attracted to it anymore. So it works really, really well, especially with body image, and as you're talking about food, and how we relate to it.
Yeah. I think it's interesting what you were just talking about with the food part, that is something. And then I want to get into the body part too. So I would take with the food part. I find it interesting what you were saying about, like, what are the memories and what are the emotions attached to the food? Because really, if we go back, I hear so many people say, this was the food that I ate with my family. This is what my family did. And this is how I felt love, right?
Exactly.
Around that food. And then what you're talking about is how to release that kind of, attraction to it, and start recognizing that there's something larger going on around it. You're not out of control. You just have this kind of relationship with that food that maybe is something you don't want to have anymore.
Exactly. And, as adults, that's all a part of my realigning limiting beliefs. We grow up with all these beliefs, either they're family taught or society taught. And then we get to be adults and we go, well, you know what? That belief, if we think about it,
Right.
And do a little analysis, it's like, well, that belief doesn't really work for me anymore. So, okay, well, let's release it then. Let's replace it with a positive belief, then, not that negative belief. And the same thing with food. It's not to say that if you had this certain food and you felt loved, this is great, because that's what we want in the world, is to feel loved and cherished and cared for, and that we matter. But if you're having that relationship with that food, let's say ice cream, for example, and you're now in your 40s or 50s or 60s or more, and you're having a weight issue, you might want to just look at why, do I still need that food to feel loved? Or do I can feel loved without having that food?
Well, it's interesting what you're talking about. Is it really makes me think about that feeling of out of control. And what you're talking about is that, some people, I feel out of control. So, like, the way I'll get back in control is I'll just say, I can't have it. I can't have it. And what we all know is when we say, I can't have it, we want it even more.
Yes, that's
right. It's just, we just wanted it even more.
It's human nature.
It just is. And especially those of us in the States, my gosh, we are really all up for our freedoms, and we get to do what we want to do. And it's like, so if there's this food that you feel you can't control, right? Quote unquote, can't control. It's like what I hear you talking about is, what is the relationship with that food, and how might you have a different relationship? So you could say, literally, do I really want this or don't I? And the energy is freed up so that you're not going pretty unconscious with your food, right? Am I hearing this correctly?
Yeah, exactly. So you're having a relationship with the food, obviously. And so what is that relationship? Is it healthy or is it unhealthy? And if consciously it's unhealthy, then why? Is what happened? Where? And that's what I love about the body code and emotion code modality, is because we get to the root cause. We're not just looking at a symptom. So eating, and we all do that. And we often eat what we know we shouldn't eat. But, I agree with you. If you say, no, you can't have it, well, then of course, our instinct is that we just want to have it. So have a little bit, maybe not have the whole chocolate bar, just have a couple of bars or a couple of cubes of the chocolate bar. And so we're looking at the relationship that we're having, and the emotional relationship. And oftentimes we don't actually add the emotions to the physical. We're looking at what's going on physically with us, and we don't investigate or research why is that happening. And so again, the root cause. Why am I always determined to eat the whole chocolate bar?
Right. And so that's interesting, is like really taking space to examine what is the emotional relationship with the
Yes.
food, and rather than, I mean, if you want to eat the whole thing, eat the whole thing. But it becomes being conscious of, is this what I really want? Am I hungry? Is this what my body, how's this going to feel in my body? Really being more discerning about what we do. And you're really talking about being more conscious as we're eating to really explore the decision that we're making.
Yeah, absolutely. That's for sure. Always be curious. That's I always say, what we got in trouble for as a child is usually our gift. So I got in trouble for being too sensitive and asking too many questions. So, my sensitivity obviously now is worth
it pays off.
It pays off, because that's what I do with my clients.
Yeah.
And curious. I've always been curious. I'm always asking questions.
Always be curious. And that's a good way to approach with your food. I wonder also what you think. I've been talking to a lot of people who have, because we're in the summertime now here in the States, going into bikini, we call it here bikini weather, which is super funny because, it's like get bikini ready. But what I think that goes on around that is a lot of body shaming and feeling really uncomfortable in our body. And this can be the time of year where people get really triggered by the clothes that they think they're supposed to wear and thinking their body isn't okay. What do you think in terms of the body code? Like what goes on with our body, and what do you think about all this?
Well, what the body code is, so let me just explain. There's two levels. The first level is the emotion code, and that's learning all about the emotions and how they relate to our organs and our glands and what's going on in the body. So Dr. Bradley Nelson, who created the protocols, the emotion code's the first level. I've been certified in that now for over 5 years. And then the body code is the next level if you choose to take it. Some people just stay being emotion code practitioners. I really enjoyed finding out about the body because it looks at everything that's going on in the body. So it looks at the organs, it looks at the glands, it looks at all of the systems, including things like the chakras, the meridians, our aura, our electromagnetic field. So we're looking at whether there's a misalignment or an imbalance, and what emotions are causing that. So, I hear what you're saying around this time of year, and I think we have to step back a bit and say, well, how do I feel? I'm not 100% happy with the shape of my body, but I feel good. So, it's just going to be what it's going to be at this age. And so sometimes we have to just say, okay, if I feel good, I'm eating healthy, I'm drinking lots of water, and my body feels healthy. I think we need to be more comfortable with who we are and how we feel in our bodies. And if you're not feeling 100% in your body, well, then that's another time to start to be curious and start to ask questions.
I think that's really interesting because we can get so stuck on what we look like in summer clothes rather than your question. I wrote it down. How do I feel? And literally, how do I feel in my body? And if it's not feeling well, what do I need to do? What is not resonating? Is it that I need to drink more water, maybe less caffeine? I am eating. I know a lot of people and those on the listening right now will eat foods that they know literally will make them sick, right? And I think that comes back to your always be curious, like. So you're literally eating foods that your body says, this doesn't work well. And that it becomes really checking back in with what's going on and is my body kind of expressing liveliness in the way I want it to.
Yeah. And is your body doing what you want it to do? Are you able to keep up with your grandchildren? Are you able to go for that walk every day?
Mhm.
Or if you're still a runner, go for your jog.
Mhm.
Are you panting when you go up some stairs? Are you huffing and puffing?
Yeah.
Then maybe that's telling you something. And it's not always, I think, Kim, I think you've really nailed it here, because we are way, way too overconscious of what we look on the outside.
Oh,
We have to be so more conscious about what's going on in the inside.
mhm.
I've listened to a lot of healing podcasts, and they're talking about not only gut health, but how that interprets to brain health.
Yes.
And, aging is everything that is going to happen. Do you want your brain to be working at age 80
Yeah.
and 90? And if you are, it's not, you might call it dementia, you might call it Alzheimer's, but what if you knew that what you're putting in your body could stop that if you are eating whole foods and not eating processed foods?
Yeah, it's really having that. I like that idea of that literal gut check of what, it's a lot of times where I'll hear them say, I know I shouldn't have this. This isn't. And I always think, like, have what you want to have. It's just, how does it feel in your body? And if you're going to feel bad about it after you eat something, that's a good time to check in and go, well, so why am I feeling bad after I eat something? Is this really, I call it my right food, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is this my right food? And there's a lot of information out there about gut health and how that mind body connection.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doctors, but like, this is certainly being talked about a lot in that field. And so really going back to kind of what resonates with my body is, I think, a lot of what you're talking about.
Yeah, just get in touch with how you're feeling with your body, both physically, emotionally, as well as emotionally, physically, mentally, how you're feeling. If you eat something and you have brain fog for the next couple of hours, well, maybe that should be an indication that you shouldn't eat it.
But I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier, that if you do eat something and you have that physical brain fog, I think what you're talking about is then check back in with the emotions. Right?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Check in with those emotions and see why you're feeling like that. And again, it could be a food, as you mentioned earlier, that you relate to family and feeling loved. But now at a later stage in life, and as we age, sometimes we can't eat those foods. I heard someone the other day on a podcast talk about how she was raised on macaroni and cheese, like the kind where you added the cheese to and
the powdered cheese.
The powdered cheese. And she's like, I can't believe how healthy I am. I can't, because and those are things that we relate to depending on how old we are. And we can understand that that's how we were raised. But there's just so much information out there for people to be aware of. And that's why I talk about being curious and checking in and finding out what's going on.
So what do you think, what are your recommendations for people when they want to be on that search for that emotional healing, that physical healing, that you talked about energy healing? Like, what do you think they need to start doing to move into that more healing mindset?
Well, there's a few things that people can do. First of all, awareness. That's the first step, to be aware that if you're, my story is that, I wasn't in a happy relationship over 20 years ago. And so I started to be aware of, okay, well, why am I not? And why am I feeling, I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling, this is not going the way I thought it was going to go. And so I was fortunate at the time that I found my teacher. I was doing some networking because I had a company at the time. And so I was out doing some networking, met her at a women's luncheon meeting, and ended up working with her for 8 years. And she was the one who taught me about vibration, about energy, about emotions, and how they relate to us and to our bodies. And so when you are aware, first of all, then you need to be looking for podcasts like yours, looking at books that are reading books that are available about healing, about health. There's just so much information out there. There is a lot, but just start with one book and read about that. Read about how you can improve your. And we don't want to talk about diet, and I'm meaning diet in the big term, not just what you're going to put on your plate today, but looking at overall. Am I eating more fruits and vegetables? Am I eating too many carbs? In the wintertime, I will confess I eat way too many carbs because it's comfort food. I live in Canada; it gets cold up here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that's an interesting thing about the idea of energy connected to food, and that, is it that kind of healing energy or that kind of high vibration with the food that's really going to fuel you to, I'd say, is it going to fuel you to do the things you need to do, you want to do, right? And that's that kind of mind body, emotion body connection that I think you're just really supporting as we're talking about it today.
I have a great tip.
Yes.
So our bodies are really true to who we are, basically from our subconscious, our muscles, our electromagnetic field. Those are the three components of the process that I use when I do body coded work with my clients. And so if you're not sure about a food, whether you're standing in the grocery store or whether you've got it on your plate, muscle test, find out.
So describe, we have not gone over muscle testing here. Can you tell us what, so there'll be some that can see us on YouTube if you do any, I know some, the finger, and also describe it for those listening, because that's going to be a good takeaway.
Okay. So the easiest ones that I would recommend is either called the strong arm test. So you put your arm out like this. If you say your name, your true name, who you are, your arm should be strong. If you say a different name that's not your name, your arm will go weak. Your muscles are true to who you are. So they're not going to lie. So if you've got a food in front of you, or I see this at the grocery store, which is quite cute. So people are standing in front of on the aisle, looking at cereal or something in a can or whatever. And they'll have their arm out. Actually, they oftentimes don't do that because that's, people can see what you're doing.
Looks a little weird.
It looks a little weird. One that's not quite so obvious is called the sway test. So when you're standing up and you say your name, your body should sway forward. That's your yes. And if you say something different, that's not your name, your body should sway back. So you can do the same thing. You can put your hand on the food, on the can of whatever, on the box of whatever you're thinking of buying in the grocery store, on the vegetables even, and the fruit. And then just your body will tell you, just say, okay, should I have this food?
Should I buy this food? And so if you're going to use the sway technique, you're going to sway forward as a yes. You're going to basically lean into it, right?
Exactly.
I'm leaning into this and then I'm leaning back from it. And so if I'm leaning in, if my body's leaning into it, and it's really the power of the body.
And the energy and the vibration that's all around us, that is giving you the answer.
Yes. I think is that an easier one, do you think, to do than the arm testing?
Well, easier to do in public.
It doesn't, yes.
It's not quite so intrusive.
No, that's a really good thing. And so, I like that idea of doing the testing, the body testing, the muscle testing, to see whether it's a food that really is going to resonate for you, because it's going then with your body wisdom, the energy that's flowing, and we're all made of energy. There's energy floating all over. I love that one. So tell me, what would you do if you're going to do the arm one? You hold it out long and hold it out to your
straight,
side
just up
and
to your
then-
side, do it straight.
and touch the food
touch the food.
with
And
your other
then,
hand.
yeah, you can touch it with your other hand. And then I usually put my other hand, because you don't actually need to touch the food.
Oh, okay.
Just standing in front of it.
Yeah.
And then just say, okay, is this food healthy for me? So if your arm stays strong, that's a yes. And then if it goes weak, then that's your no.
So for those of you not watching, what we're doing is you put one arm out, you put the other arm on top of it, and just wonder, is this my right food to buy? And if your arm goes weak, it's basically taking energy from your body. If your arm stays strong, it's going to bring energy to you.
Perfect.
And
yes.
I know there are a lot of people out there that maybe don't know of any of this. There actually, if you go on YouTube, there are many different ways to do muscle testing and just testing for foods like that. Actually, this is the first time we've talked about this on our podcast. So I'm loving that you're talking about something that's really pretty simple. Why do you think that energy, kind of like for anybody who's a little skeptical about that kind of energy, like how could we encourage them to maybe give this a little bit of a try?
Well, I think you can now. I know there are lots of YouTube videos out there about energy. You can look up people like Dr. Bruce Lipton. He talks about the biology of belief. What you believe is really what's going to happen. There's Dr. Joe Dispenza. He was a chiropractor and was in a triathlon, was on his bike hit by a truck and was told he would never walk again. Just about every bone in his body was broken. And now this is the short version. Sure. He went home and decided, no, I'm going to meditate and I'm going to heal. So we don't know that. We're not taught that in mainstream society, that our bodies are that amazing. And our bodies are really, really amazing. So he completely healed his body. And now he had to believe that he was going to do it and that was going to happen. So that's a big part of it. That's what Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about. So there is information out there that, and these are scientists. So
these are doctors. These are not doctors. Just kind of, they think it's a good idea. It's actually been studied.
Yes.
So if somebody wants to learn more about this, where can they find you? And do you have something you can offer so people can get to know you a little bit better? I find all this fascinating. I love this stuff. So I'm hoping people are going to want to learn more because this is super interesting to me.
Well, thanks, Kim. Yes, absolutely. I love to teach. I love to let people know what's out there and what's happening. So I have a website. It's vibrationalhealing.ca. And if you want to be, just email me. It's Permelia, my first name, at vibrationalhealing.ca. Okay. I have a calendar link that I've put in the chat. And so people can book an appointment with me. And for your listeners, and I would love to offer a complimentary body code session for them. So they can again book that through the calendar link. They can book that.
That is so interesting because sometimes it can resonate, but people just don't quite know what it is. So I hope that people reach out to get this. So for everybody listening, I'm going to put all the information in the show notes, so you'll be able to get to the link. And I encourage you to take her up on it. This kind of work is beyond the kind of talk things that we do a lot, and that's why I love this myself. I really want to thank you, Permelia. This was so interesting, so different than what we've talked about before. And I think you're bringing literally new vibration
Yay!
to the food. Well, to when we talk about intuitive eating and how to look at food differently and how to look at our body differently. You literally have taken us to a new level. And I thank you a lot for being on our show. And Everybody, thank you all for joining us on the podcast. This is the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. I am Kim McLaughlin, and thank you guys for joining us.